Hey guys, wanted to post a little bit of a funny story here that speaks to a large issue that's going on. And there is a medical journal called The Lancet. And it was about something completely different, but it described women as bodies with vaginas. And they, the reason that they tried to describe women in that way was because they were trying to bow their heads to the transgender community and describe women in such a way that they weren't describing a gender or a sex, right? So they were trying not to offend the transgender community. And at the end of the day, what they ended up doing was they ended up offending women and common sense itself. Now let's talk about why this happened. Why would they go about and do that? Well, first off, they lack all common sense. But the true reason that they lack all common sense is because they don't want to offend, right? And I think they're not wanting to offend. It explains a really big thing that a lot of people in the world miss today. And that's this. There's a difference between you being offended and someone else being offensive, right? That is something that people try to equate the two, and they're not, right? Let's think about it this way. I could look at you and you think that I looked at you in a certain way, and that could offend you. But my look itself is not offensive, right? On the other hand, I could go and say, curse your dead mama, right? That's offensive. But you might have a sick sense of humor. You might laugh at that. You might not be offended, right? So, offensive behaviors are something that are largely going to be judged by the larger society. But ultimately, offensive behaviors, what happens is people have become so sensitive now that they think anything you say that they don't like is now offensive, right? But what really is the truth is they just become offended. And what have they become offended by? They've become offended by the truth. Now, let's break it down in this situation here. If somebody was really going to be messed up by somebody describing someone as a woman, what are they really bothered by? They're bothered by truth, right? The fact that there is male and female is not disputable. The fact that that even has to be said is to me laughable, but it talks about the fact that we have fallen so low in our rational understanding of the human world that we have taken things that should be easily understood and we've now taken them to a realm of confusion where people think there's thousands of different genders out there and thousands of different sexes, and ultimately there's not, right? There will always be male and female. God created man, male and female, he created them. That is a very simple explanation. And the truth of the matter is that truth is always stark, and that's why it offends, right? You are either good looking or you're not. You're either smart or you're not. These things are stark realities because ultimately, when you break things down into truth or false, it doesn't really leave a lot of room for kindness, right? Now, that doesn't mean that we can't say the truth in kindness, and there's some things that we cannot say in order to be kind. But when we starkly discuss an issue that has philosophical or moral implications to it, we have to use stark language, and people don't like that. When you get offended by somebody else speaking truth, the problem is you, not them. And that goes to this whole sex and morality piece. Because really, when you boil it down to its senses, it doesn't matter how you look at it. Sexuality is supposed to be rational. Sexuality stems from our need to reproduce. That's where it comes from. And yes, it has pleasure, but ultimately sex is a form of reproduction. And people don't like that stark reality because sex being for reproduction talks about the fact that sex has utility. It has a proper place. And sex having a proper place means that there's some things that sex is not meant for. There are some uses of sex that are out of place, which would mean that there could be a rational argument to say why some forms of sexual contact will be immoral and some forms of sexual contact would be considered in moral bounds. And people don't want to think about that because that would mean that what they're doing is wrong. Somebody could desperately want something and that could be wrong. One thing that I've always found curious is when you watch the manosphere, right? People are very quick to say, and I don't judge you for your taste. Well, the truth of the matter is that your taste actually should be judged. If you out there liking little kids, guess what? You got some sick taste. You got some messed up taste. And the idea that you can't change your taste is false, because nobody is born from the womb and just starts liking little kids, right? Nobody is like that. That happens because we become twisted. And if we can become twisted, guess what? You can become untwisted. So here's the thing. Stark truth will offend people. Truth statements offend people. This channel will offend people. And I say to all those people who get offended, get over it.